Call the Board of Selectmen's meeting to order. If you would all please rise to salute the flag. Yeah. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let the record show that Chairman Veneziano is absent. All of the selectmen are present. Item C, consent agenda. AP warrants number 21 dated 11/18/19, number 22 11/18/19, number 23 also 11/18/19, payroll register number 47 11/21/19, number 48 11/27/19.
Move to accept.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept the warrants. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor? And there are warrants for us to sign tonight. All right, acceptance of the meeting minutes from November 18th. I trust you've all had a chance to read them. Any questions, comments, or discussion?
Move to accept.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the meeting minutes from the November 18th meeting. If there are no questions, all those in favor? All in favor. Old business, Mr. Moody.
None, sir.
Mr. Elias?
None for me.
Mr. Savage? And none for me. Items of communication, Mr. Town.
Just a couple of things. Those colorful handouts there on the table were part of a presentation that the town did at the Maine Forest Economy meeting up in Bangor last week. Basically talking about several of the mill towns and processes of redevelopment and getting the word out. So it was a good process in economic development that we did, and we're going to get some help to make those little portfolios in the town even more professional looking. While I was up there, I met a gentleman from the Maine Development Foundation who told me that next week they're rolling out some significant grant opportunities specifically for towns doing mill redevelopment. And so we'll be working with GoLabs. It's one of those processes where the town has to fill out an application on behalf of a company. So I'll get you more information about that as if anything from the board is required in that regard. Last Wednesday there was a meeting up in Solon for towns in northern Somerset County outlining the new changes in the state marijuana laws. And I found it interesting. I think in your packets I gave you some of the new language of the statutes, but also interesting was the list of the 27 towns that have opted in. So if you're familiar with the process, all towns are considered to be prohibiting marijuana use unless you actually take legislative action to opt in. So there's a list there of the 27 towns in the state of Maine who have opted in to that process. I was talking to Chairman Veneziano the other day, and the topic of whether or not to hold a meeting on Monday the 23rd came up. So I just want to get the pulse of the board, just make sure if there was going to be a meeting that there would be people here, because it is a couple days before Christmas. But on the other side of that, there may not be a large agenda for such a meeting. So as of right now, I believe that the status is kind of wavering as to whether you'd have a meeting on the 23rd. Unless you absolutely tell me tonight, come hell or high water, Mr. Moody, you want a meeting that night.
So you're letting that sit with if we need to do something? If we don't, we're not coming?
Well, ultimately, it's up to the chairman. And so he's already expressed his opinion that he doesn't think we absolutely need to have a meeting just for the sake of having a meeting.
I agree.
I would agree with that.
That's what I assume the consensus of the
If
board would be.
there are items that we need to discuss
Right.
and vote on, then we should meet. If there aren't, then there are alternative ways that we can get a hold of everybody.
Tonight will be a good year ending.
You would?
Kind of a way to wish everybody a happy new year.
There you go. There you go.
That's all I have.
Okay, department head reports, you have the sheriff's report, you also have the report from the fire chief there. You Mr. Moody?
Yeah, what's this grant all about for a pumper tanker?
So this is the AFG grant. It's the same grant process that we've received SCBA's, the air tanks. We received the Jaws of Life. They have a vehicle program. And the vehicle program is really just like pulling the arm on a slot machine. You put an application in, you're one of about 4,000 applications, and they probably give about 40 trucks. So,
And what is there, or is there any matching with this grant?
with the AFG grant, it's from FEMA, it's federal government, so it's a
Yeah.
very small match for rural towns. It's, the only required match is a 5% match. So if we applied for a $300,000 truck, we'd only have to put in $15,000 as a match for it. We applied for this, the same grant last year, and we didn't get to the funding level. They only have so much money, and they really stress your call volume, in other words, how much this truck rolls, and the age of the vehicle. And right now, our truck is a 30-year-old vehicle. You can apply for anything 25 years or older, but when I talked with the folks that run this grant program for FEMA, they looked at our application and they said all the trucks that got funded in your area were over 35 years old. So you just didn't have an old enough truck to get up there. So after talking with Don about it, it's something that we'll just continue to apply for every year until we get the money.
Do you have any idea what kind of shape our 30-year-old truck is in?
I know it leaks, and that's not good for a pumper tanker because it's got a 1,000-gallon tank on it, and the 1,000-gallon tank is in fairly good shape. The other part of it is, it's a manual transmission, only 3 guys can drive it on our
Are
fire.
you serious?
Yeah. So, those are just some of the things that come with a 30-year-old vehicle. So,
You can't fix the leaks.
we are always fixing leaks. It's just one of those things that you chase on a 30-year-old vehicle.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions on either the fire department report or
And
the?
we got the grader back finally after 2.5 months of being broke. Been plowing snow, sanding roads. Things are going very well.
Pretty light winter so far.
Depends on the day. Any questions? No?
My mailbox is still standing.
I look at that every time I go by, Ronnie.
I mean, it's almost as tall as a telephone pole, so they shouldn't be able to hit it.
Mr. Moody, the one that put the big snowball out in the middle of the road?
Maybe that was him, was sabotage.
I heard about that, it was right in front of my driveway.
What was it?
I had a great big gob of snow out there, I guess.
You do drop a bucket load, I think?
I didn't see it.
No.
Okay. There's no other questions? Yes, I'm good. We're good. All right, item 2, discuss code enforcement position.
So I think I shared this with the board by way of communication back in November, but Susan Hathaway is our code enforcement officer. She's been appointed and she remains our appointed code officer. She did tender a letter of resignation because she was taking another job where she was working from home. After talking with her, she is staying on per diem, so she doesn't have any office hours at the town office. She's following up on the largest project that's going on, which is the construction of the Woodlands Senior Living Center over in East Madison. Because she's right in the middle of all those inspections, they've asked her to stay on, and she's staying on to finish up those. Anything right now that comes in for code enforcement, as far as either a walk-in or a phone call, I usually take it just to kind of discern what they're looking for. If we can't help them, then we can direct them to Susan, who will try to guide them through the process. This certainly is not a long-term fix. I have been hesitant to put out a job application or a job description posting, if you will. I've asked some people in the know, including Mr. Savage, of anybody that might be interested. I talked to Skowhegan, I've talked to Fairfield, I've talked with Anson. I'm just letting you know, it's gonna be tough to fill this position unless we just, again, are fortunate enough to run into the right person. We've got, Bobby Dumpy used to work a 20-hour-a-week schedule. Susan worked a 24-hour per week schedule. And we've got about $28,000 budgeted for code enforcement. So,
Just a move.
Having that said, and you saying that it's gonna be tough to fill a position like that, is there a reason why you wanna hold off on advertising?
well, I wanted to talk to the board about it tonight, and I wanted to hold off until I had just kind of put some feelers out there through different towns and whatnot. That's my conclusion, is that it's gonna be difficult after talking with those other towns. You know, Randy Gray retired in Skowhegan, and they went through 6 months' worth of interview processes. They offered the job to 4 different people and were turned down 4 different times. That's a full-time job with benefits in Skowhegan. And they ended up offering it to an individual that had never served as a code officer before, and the state allows you 1 year to get trained. So that kind of gave me the idea, if it was that tough for them to fill a full-time position, it'll be interesting to see what we're gonna be up against for a part-time position.
Yeah, but we shouldn't hold off too long, should we?
Oh, no, I plan on.
I agree with what you're saying about the feelers
Yeah.
and stuff like that, but if we hold off too long, so we're gonna grab them before we can get our hands out there. That would be my fear.
Do you think that it would be beneficial to post that with MMA?
Oh, yeah.
Before, I mean, just get it out there and say, hey, we're, before we even put it in the paper or anything like that. We
Yeah.
just kind of post it with MMA, because lots of times they're gonna have a, kind of an internal lead on some things.
Oh, it's not a bad idea, and it doesn't cost us
Yeah.
anything to post on MMA.
Yeah.
It'll cost us about $300 or $400 whether we go in the paper or we go online.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why these people aren't available?
These
It's
people,
like any job in public service.
It's like any job.
No one wants to.
Nobody's interested in it? Is that what you're,
Mhm.
I'd even entertained, I talked with Anson about maybe finding someone that could, juggle together a couple of different towns to make a full-time job out of it. The tricky part is, where Madison is, everybody to the north and everybody to the west is a smaller town that doesn't have to follow the state's UBEC building codes.
Right.
We do, Skowhegan does, Fairfield does, so everybody in that direction either has a full-time or a pretty, substantial commitment to code enforcement. So we're kind of caught right in the middle with that.
okay.
I
But
think
we
we
will,
have to continue to be creative
Yep.
about filling that, and, I've talked to some guys that, like, have plumber's licenses and
Right.
electrician's licenses, and say, hey, if you're looking to maybe semi-retire or something like that, I mean, I would think, 24 hours would be a decent retirement gig.
Yep. so we'll,
If you know what you're doing.
so we'll begin the posting process this week then. So,
All right. Anything else there? All right. Item 3, discuss matching grant payment, Main Cedar Hot Tubs.
So, back in the summer, Main Cedar Hot Tubs was one of 7 businesses that applied for and received an award for $5,000 in matching grant funds. They have finished their project, they've submitted the necessary paperwork. Tammy Carrier does a good job of following up with them, getting all the paperwork, so more than just what you have in your packet here. But they did pay for the necessary work for siding and roof repair. And so they've met all the requirements to receive their grant, and now we just need action from the board to release the funds.
All right. You have that information in your packet. It's already, the grant has already been approved. It's just we have to vote on
What's the amount going on?
5,000.
5,000.
5,000 from TIF is how it should be looked
I'll make
So
a
move,
motion.
okay, I'll second that.
So it's been moved to pay the 5,000 out of TIP. Moved and seconded. Any questions?
Yeah, this was their total bill, 10,300?
Yeah.
That's the nice part about the matching grant program, is they kick some money in. All right. Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor? All in favor, it is the vote. All right, item 4, discuss stormwater assessment fee.
So the Anson-Madison Sanitary District is meeting this month to finalize their budget for 2020, and their budget begins in January 2020. The direction that we received, and I say we as in the Board of Selectmen and the town, the direction we received from town meeting was to not pay the invoice that was given to the town for $107,000. So that invoice was given to the town back originally in July of 2019, and it was resent to the town in September of 2019. And that's what's in your packet there, the original stormwater invoice for $107,000. Just to refresh your memory, the town meeting did appropriate $44,000. And of that $44,000, the town has spent about 12 or 13,000 paying for cleanings that was done back in 2018. What's kind of in the middle of that invoice in your photocopy there is the wording of the state statute that the sanitary district is using to make their case between the towns of Madison and Anson that they can bill for stormwater. And based on what the position the town of Anson and the town of Madison are taking is they will pay for services rendered, but not for an arbitrary amount of money. So what I'm asking for tonight is kind of the board's direction, as I would like to attend the sanitary district's meetings and kind of talk about this from a fresh start. A few years ago, when the sanitary district was really reeling with a budget shortfall, this was an attempt by the sanitary district to kind of cover their shortfall with these assessments from the town. I would like to recommend that the sanitary district and the towns talk about this fresh. And I used to go into this thinking that Madison and Anson could be treated equally in this, or at least fairly. But Anson is really a different beast altogether in what they're dealing with. And so I would like to make an overture to the sanitary district to say that the town of Madison will pay something for stormwater treatment. But it has to be done in some way that you can assess it fairly. So here's the problem on the other side of that, is from the sanitary side, and a wise road commissioner told me this once, you can't budget for the weather, right? So those pumps run over there at the sanitary district, and tonight they're gonna run twice as much as they did yesterday, because you've got all the stormwater that's coming from Madison that's going into that system over there. So to ask Dale at the sanitary district to come up to a bill for services rendered based on how many man-hours, electricity, chemicals, and all that was used to treat this storm is nearly impossible. You just can't figure that out. So what I'd like to propose is that the sanitary district take the one item that they can look at through the course of the year and say, we spent this, which is their electricity costs. Use that, because that's probably the biggest expense when those pumps run, is not the manpower, not the chemicals to treat stormwater, it's the electricity to run those pumps when they go through there. I would recommend that we enter into some sort of memorandum of understanding with the sanitary district to say the town of Madison will pay X% of the district's energy costs. That's the closest thing I can think of to paying for services rendered for stormwater treatment without just paying an arbitrary number. So, question, how much do they pay in energy? They pay about $180,000 a year. Dale gave me the numbers for 2018, so the complete year of 2018, they paid $181,500 in energy costs. So let's just say the town of Madison steps up to say we'll pay 30%. So that 30% will be about $55,000. Say, let me know. Stop me if I'm crazy. Stop me if you think this is going down the wrong road.
First of all, you're going down the wrong road. Because of that electricity, probably, I'm just taking a stab at it, but half of that is the lagoons, which we have nothing to do with stormwater. The pumps you're talking about are pumping the water that's being into the system. So we shouldn't be paying for the lagoon electricity. The areas, that's all combined together.
So
when I go to the sanitary district, my hope is that if I do bring up something like this, they'll be able to respond and say, well, let's figure out a way to come up with a number that's consistent every year.
The electric department does not separate lagoons from the rest of the place.
Right. That's why I said that the town wouldn't pay for the whole thing.
Can that happen?
No, I don't think they're on separate, I don't know if they're on separate meters.
But could they be?
I'm sure they can if you want to pay for them. Anything can be done, Ron, you know what I mean?
But how about did you find out?
First of all, let me clear up something right now, okay? Sitting at this table, I'm gonna vote to pay nothing. Okay? Because you was at the last meeting. When I said, you and Anson's town manager.
Tammy.
Yeah, I said Tammy, right?
Tammy, yeah.
I made the statement, let's go to court. We don't even know if we're right, right? The sewer district doesn't know if they can charge the towns a dime. She threw up PUC, because you guys, the towns don't require an itemized bill from the water district, right? Because PUC says. Okay, that's what Tammy told me. Okay, let's let the state tell us what we can charge for. So, sitting over here right now, I'm gonna vote to say, pay nothing. We're just spinning our wheels because we don't even know if we can charge. Once we get the ruling from the court, then we can charge, or we can't charge. It's a dead issue.
So I don't know if that's exactly, I don't know if that's exactly fair to the district, because the district is going to incur costs,
Tim,
whether or not you go to court or not.
we've been incurring these costs since time began,
Right.
right?
Yeah, no, I'm talking about storm drain cleaning to Ted Berry, that sort of thing.
That isn't what I'm saying, excuse me, Jack. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying an upfront amount of money like we pay the water district.
Mhm.
You can pay what you're charged for work that's been done.
Right.
You're saying pay for this when you don't really know how much electricity is being used on those pumps that are pumping the stormwater.
So has that board, that sanitary board, have they thought far enough down the road to say, if the court does say that the district can charge for services rendered, have you thought about how you're gonna figure out that invoice? Because I don't think this invoice will fly.
Tim, we don't know what we can charge for,
Well, according to the law, you can charge for services rendered.
which we do, right? But that may not be all of the law.
If I can interrupt you for a second, I think this whole thing started because
The mill shut down.
we paid, the taxpayers of Madison didn't have any problem paying for services rendered. Where the problem came in was when there was a delay, there was an annual delay in getting those services paid. So, rather than the sanitary district floating the cost so that they could bill actual cost, which I don't believe, based on my reading of what I've heard from taxpayers and so forth, nobody has a problem paying the actual cost. What they have a problem with is paying a per capita amount based on some arbitrary guess that it's gonna cost us this much money to maintain storm drains. Has nothing to do with the electricity or anything like that. So I'm with you for a different reason, that we pay nothing until we have a bill for services rendered. If we have a bill for services rendered, pay it. And I think the taxpayers will support that all day long, but the taxpayers are not gonna support an arbitrary number, writing a check to the district for them to put in their savings account.
Well, they showed that last year.
And that was, you're absolutely right. Mr. Moody, do you have another, wait a second, Mr. Moody. You have a comment?
The only comment, I agree with what the both of you people are saying. The only question I have is, when are we going to get this into the court system to get an answer to that? Or has anybody started that initiation?
I'd like to answer that question.
I don't know, so.
Mr.
I'd like
Lyons?
to answer that question. At least 3 months ago, at our meeting, we sat there and asked Dale to send this, to get a date, court date, so we could take Hanson to court, all right? And he put that off, and he put it off, and he put it off. At the last meeting, you were there, we still haven't gone to court yet, we still don't have a date. So I sat at the meeting and I said, I told him, I said, Dale, your board, by the way, the ones that hire and fire you, are telling you to get a court date, okay? Until that happens, we don't know. And that's what I said. I want to know what we can charge. The water district, because of PUC, can charge up to 30%. And they do, and no one questions it, okay? So let the court tell us what we can charge for.
Mr. Moody?
I agree. I'm just wondering, is there a reason why he's dragging his feet?
I think that would be speculation.
No,
Unless
it's
you
not
know.
speculation. The answer to that is the same thing that we had with the assessors. We want to have a good working relationship with Eagle Creek. They want to have a good working relationship with Anson. Right now, who's very upset. So I says, oh, so it's okay that we're upset, but we don't want to upset them, okay? So I said, fine, then let's go to court, and we'll let the court upset us. Because like I said, if the court says we can't charge, done. I'm done talking about it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we'll just go as we did before, pay as we go, right?
Right.
That's it. That's it. That answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Savage, do you have any comment, question?
If you get any more comments,
No, I'll go down a different road. As this progresses forward, can we actually get a number on how many stormwater drains we actually treat? Because I know all the years I worked in town and they did stormwater separation for years and years and years. So the 535 in town, is it 10, is it 20?
I think it's around 20.
Okay, well, 20
We
times
got one by
it's
the-
not a bad number.
Well, we got one down, yep, there's a lot of water comes in there. We've got one down by the police station, sterile.
Oh, that one.
Why not?
That's, you can't.
Flooded
It's
that
part of the
building
sewer.
twice.
That's the sewer to the town office.
Yeah.
It's the same height.
Well, like I said, I mean, if there's 50 of them, if it's $20 a piece really to treat the water, that's reasonable, but this just arbitrary number, because there's 535 that run into the river, just don't make sense.
But it's not about treating the water, it's about maintaining the stormwater drain.
It's about maintaining the whole plant. No different than when you pay your water assessment.
Well, that's what I should say.
You don't take, look, let me tell you something, when they call that fire protection, they charge us so much per hydrant. That's all it is, we're charging you so much a hydrant, okay? So they take 30% of their budget, they divide it into how many hydrants we got, and that's what you pay per hydrant, and that's what we pay, $250,000 a year.
Yep.
It's as simple as that, it's got nothing to do with anything but that.
So I have a procedural question for the sanitary district's board. You were presented a rough draft of the 2020 budget at your last meeting, and you're gonna hold a budget meeting this Wednesday.
Right.
When I talked with Dale, I asked him, in this proposed budget, how much do you have for stormwater fees to the town? And he said he left them the same as what they were.
He did.
So in your budget, you're going to have $107,000 in revenue coming from the town of Madison that I assume you're gonna send an invoice for. But, from what you just said, you won't really know whether you can send that invoice until you get a response from the court. So, as a member of the sanitary district board, what would you say to Dale about leaving that $107,000 in the budget?
I'm not telling the same thing I just told you tonight. I'm not voting for a budget that's got that in there if we don't even know what we can charge for it.
Okay. So what I would recommend is if we go back to the old way, I know that the district has encumbered $10,000, $12,000 worth of costs for cleaning catch basins in 2019. We have money to pay for that. So that money you certainly could put in your budget to receive from the town, because we have the money already allocated from our town meeting to pay for that.
See, I'm surprised you haven't gotten a bill yet, because we just paid Ted Berry, and it's quite a substantial amount of money to clean the catch basins here.
Yeah.
Did you get a bill
I
yet?
know, I was told by Dale that we will not get a bill for this because this is the bill that supersedes that bill. So I think there's some confusion on your board and your direction.
There's no confusion on the board. Understand what I'm saying?
I
We
understand.
told, after town meeting, we told them point blank, bill us for services and we'll pay it. We said that.
Jack, if the law says we gotta pay something, you can do anything you want at town meeting. And if the town's held in contempt of court, guess what? You got to pay. So look,
But as it stands right now, we, as the towns and the district, won't really know that for many months, because it's gonna take several months to get to court.
here's what's gonna happen. Here's what will happen or should happen, okay? What should happen is you're gonna get your Ted Berry assessment.
Okay.
Money that we've actually spent.
Yep.
We can't just float that money out there, okay? We gotta have it paid for. Now, if it comes to fruition that you have to pay, then we'll take it off. We'll deduct out what you've already paid, right? Because didn't he say that will pay for that?
Right.
Okay, so if that's the case, I would more than fight for giving the town that much a reduction. Make sense?
Right.
Okay.
But my guess is, you're not gonna bill for stormwater treatment until your next budget.
We're not gonna bill for stormwater treatment until I see, oh, what we mean Ted Berry's bill?
No, not Ted Berry's bill, but say you get a favorable response from the court that says, yes, this is the formula that sanitary districts can use to charge for stormwater, and you have that formula, you're already in your budget. My guess is you wouldn't apply that fee until the 2021 budget, so then we would know, as a town, what to set aside for.
Yeah, we can't charge a town after they go to town meeting.
Right.
Right, and that's what I'm
We're
trying.
not doing it, we wouldn't do that anyway.
That's why I'm trying to have these conversations, both with water and with sanitary, because water might have a rate increase, and we have to factor that in, and so, you know, I go to these meetings so that I know what to present to the budget committee here. So that's why when I left that last sanitary district meeting, Dale said 107, that's what you better budget for, is 107.
See, here's what Dale doesn't understand, the longer he drags his feet on this thing here with Anson, this puts us into a position where we can't take any amount to town meeting.
Right.
Right? So if the law says we can charge, but it's April, tough luck, Charlie.
Right. That's why I'm saying I don't think you're gonna be able to do anything this fiscal year.
Right.
I'm saying, once you get this court thing settled and you can charge a fee, we won't know this till this time next year.
We have plenty of things to do without worrying about that.
Okay.
Okay.
It was very informative.
Does that clear up everybody's,
I,
you see
it's
where,
perfectly clear, I think we're on the same page, so.
yeah.
Okay. All right, item H, selectmen's concerns, Mr. Moody.
None, oh, excuse me. Tim, where are we, or what information do we have on how the mill is progressing?
I've been to several meetings where representatives from Go Labs have been there. They need DEP approval to do some demo work, so the specialty minerals building, the old boiler house, they're in the process of getting their permits. They hope to have those demoed and cleared out by the spring. Most everything inside the mill is really actually quite neat and tidy right now as they await their new machinery coming this spring.
So they haven't got any machinery yet?
Oh, no, it's still in Germany.
Okay,
Right.
okay,
And
because I hadn't heard nothing. I
and
was
you have to time it so that when it leaves Europe
Yes.
and lands in Bucksport here, you have to time it so that the weather is decent enough so that you can get truckers to get from Bucksport to Madison. So if they left right now, they'd end up in Bucksport in February.
Yeah.
So, and that doesn't seem to be very advantageous.
And you won't be able to get it from that point to here, because everything's posted.
So,
Okay, I was just wondering where we,
but I do hope, maybe in January, to have Josh Henry of Go Labs come and do a presentation,
yeah,
so that you can meet him and get a better idea.
okay.
Mr. Elias?
Oh, not me.
And none for me. And citizens' concerns. Do we have any citizens' concerns? Two? Two citizens, no concern?
You are a concern.
All right, item J, executive session to discuss personnel matters pursuant to 1 MRS 4056A.
Yep.
Entertain a motion for that?
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded, to go into executive session, subject to 1 MRS 4056A. No discussion, seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, opposed the vote. We're in executive session at 7:05.
7:05.
There you go.